As someone who grew up with the prequels and rode the hate train started with the Red Letter Media's review, as time marched on, I have gained a new appreciation and noticed intriguing concepts behind the prequels. The Phantom Menace's impact to the pop culture isn't much to do with the movie itself, but its responses. It shaped the fandom culture, the fan expectations, and spawned the internet age critique. We never got to see such a reaction to the Phantom Menace, maybe until The Last Jedi. It is an enigma you can analyze in so many ways. Any Star Wars prequel analysis that does not take the factors of the creator and his vision, influences, and thematic relevancy in relation is a garbage critique. Because as far as the movies were concerned, Lucas was Star Wars and Star Wars was Lucas. Anyone having any problems with that is free to have their opinion, but that is an irrefutable fact. Each movie in George Lucas's filmography is a glance into his mind. He has a style and always puts out his worldview, history, experience, philosophy, politics, and influences. You watch his films as a vehicle to get a sense of who he is in real life. He is not afraid to try something and then leave that behind to try something else. If he were any other creator, he would have milked what the original trilogy did for as long as he can. Lucas could have given the audience what they wanted and expected based on the information from the original trilogy. The original trilogy was about the underground rebels fighting the fascist oppressors and Luke going through a hero's journey to become a legendary Jedi. That's easier to write. Good versus evil. The prequel trilogy could have given another space adventure story inspired by the myths of World War II, of how there was a war between the good Republic led by King Organa and the evil Empire led by the Emperor, and the heroic Jedi fighting off the army of stormtroopers to the end. Instead, he did it for the OT and then tried something else with each prequel installment. The OT was Kurosawa meaning flash scoring with the Vietnam War politics. The Phantom Menace was an anti-colonial twist on Gunga Din 1939. Watching this movie made me understand much of the bizarre decisions he made in The Phantom Menace, even Jar Jar Binks, with the post-Cold War politics. Attack of the Clones was Dr. Zhivago in space. Revenge of the Sith was an agglomeration of Lost, Oedipus Rex, and the classic Hollywood epics with the post 9/11 politics. All the three movies were thematically built towards a cautious tale about how those bad guys in the OT came to power, with the supposed good side, that is, intentional or not, pertinent to the time we live in. The Republic was the one that became the Empire amidst the propagated senseless war. The Jedi bought into that lie and fought alongside the Stormtroopers without realizing they were the pawns in the galactic-wide political chess game, and the failing institutions and liberal democracy eventually gave way for a dictator. In other words, he took the most popular modern American cultural landmark to make radically anti-war, anti-Bush, and anti-American movies right at the furthest height of the War on Terror. The prequels are less flash scoring the fans loved about Star Wars, but more Dune and the Foundation. That's much more difficult to write because there are multiple factors and complex political dynamics to consider. You need to be a great writer to make that into an actual story, not just a political history lesson, and even better one to get some suspense out of that. Lucas had to do that while juggling Anakin's fall to the dark side and inventing a digital approach to Hollywood filmmaking, all crammed in an entertainment for children. In the blockbuster franchise filmmaking, where everything is following a familiar direction to pander to the fans, Lucas just did his own thing with his self-financed media empire, self-financed studios, self-financed filmmaking, and self-financed blockbusters. You can't get that type of authenticity from any other blockbuster. That is the biggest difference between him and his successors like J.J. Abrams and Dave Filoni, who always operate on what would Lucas do. No one could argue they are worse directors or writers than Lucas, but are they better creators than him? Can I see parts of who Filoni and Abrams are through their works in the same way I could see who Lucas was? The ideas present in their works are not from any actual belief as much as them trying to flow with the trends and fans. Good or bad, Lucas has always had a different view of the series compared to the fan bases. Much like Metal Gear with Hideo Kojima, the series is basically a documentary of George Lucas with fictional stories and whatnot. Star Wars was a template for him to do whatever he wanted and push the filmmaking to the next step. He has always been the type of creator that would experiment new things or change the series' fundamentals from movie to movie, regardless of fan reaction, formula, legacy, or lore. The result was a hot mess you can pick apart to mock. Overused CGI, Jar Jar was annoying, the incomprehensible politics, C-3PO's appearance, the virgin birth, the bad dialogues, the bad acting, and midichlorians. Lucas was a fantastic example to discuss the merits of auteur theory. The original trilogy was visionary, but the heavily refined products. Lucas had concepts, characters, overarching storyline, and world building, but with The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, the other rising directors were brought in to execute Lucas's ideas. Even with A New Hope, in which Lucas was credited as the sole writer, Lucas's friends Gloria Katz and her husband, Willard Hoyk, have done the uncredited rewrites. According to the book, Star Wars The Annotated Screenplays, they wrote about 30% of the dialogue in the final draft, and most of the memorable banters between Han and Leia were theirs. Then Lucas got studio feedback, actors added and changed their dialogues, and an enormous editing process that doctored and pieced things together by pretty much everyone involved, just like every other aspects of the movies. Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Alec Guinness were all well known for ad-libbing and script doctoring. With more voices, the better movies they got. On the contrary, the prequels were technically the most expensive indie movies ever made. He didn't make them with the other studios. He funded production out of his pocket, made them on his own, and sold distribution rights to the finished films to Fox, so it ignored the warnings from Fox executives. The prequel trilogy is an example of what Lucas made as an auteur with a singular vision. Look no further than the special editions to get a dose of Lucas's unadulterated vision. In The Empire Strikes Back, he replaced the succinct "bring my shuttle," direct indicative of Vader's rage, with the monotone "alert my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival." This is a great example of George's approach to dialogue writing. I am curious if Ron Howard, Robert Zemeckis, and Steven Spielberg rejected the directing offer out of respect for their friend Lucas, or read the script for The Phantom Menace and noped out. If Lucas planned a trilogy right or had someone like Lawrence Kasdan to touch his plan, most of the surface level problems would have been ironed out, and the pod racing sequence could have been iconic as the Death Star battle. After all, good ideas are not the same as good execution. Defenders always hide behind the vague premise being interesting as the sole reason for liking the movies. Yes, the general concepts are great. Fascism's rise in a democratic society, and about any and all people's potential to unintentionally assist in the evil, regardless of their intentions' purity. The story itself is not. The plot reads like a rough first draft combined with 3 different scripts strung out on a datura. It is a disaster of the story, but has the trappings of greatness at its core. Star Wars and Ancient Evil is the fan fiction slash fix-fic that aims to fix the story in a way that a hypothetical script doctor would come to the writing team to change up the script before filming. This is not redoing the prequels from scratch, as the project retains most set pieces and locations but recontextualized. This fanfic sets out to appease those who have certain nostalgia for the movie, people who loved it or hated it. The 3 main goals of Redone are 1. Making the characters active, 2. Raising dramatic stakes and tension, and 3. Fleshing out the story elements in a direct and streamlined manner. If you agreed with the aforementioned assessment of the prequels, take this as what the prequels could have been. If you love The Phantom Menace, take this as a fanfic about an alternative Episode 1. Either way, I hope you enjoy it. The Phantom Menace novelization efforts by Terry Brooks and Patricia C. Redd have been a massive help for this rewrite. Redone borrows heavily from the 2 novels. Liam Gilby has sent me the mail of the list of feedback regarding Redone, and version 5 was partially inspired by his suggestions. I have also taken some elements from you/him Dogson's Star Wars prequel rewrites. If any of the readers have feedback, I would appreciate it if you would DM me or send me an email.